we like a lot of things very similar, but we're also very different. In fact, I learned this when, like I said earlier, Legend Dragoon released for the PlayStation Network,
Mhm.
and you stated what you call fact, that it is
Fact.
the greatest RPG of all time,
This is a fact.
and I responded, just questioning that, of course, with the gif of Chrono. So, long story short, to me, and I didn't really even think this was a question, Chrono Trigger for the Super Nintendo is the greatest RPG of all time. I mean, that's a game that I play on the regular at least once every couple of years. And I'll go through some stuff as far as my case for why Chrono Trigger is the greatest RPG of all time. But I will say, by no means, guys, I loved Legend of Dragoon. Okay? I loved it. So I'm not here to say that that game was not awesome. I am not here to say that I don't understand why Ray thinks it's the greatest. Hell, like I said, I thought it was pretty cut and dry, but I have learned that Ray is not the only one that says, no, 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 Legend of Dragoon is the greatest RPG of all time. So, Ray, floor is yours, man. Just let's have this discussion. Of course, you guys listening to the show, if you're seeing it on YouTube, let me know in the comments. If you're just listening to it or whatever, at Omega Level Nerds, let me know what your pick is. But let's state our case here. So, 8-Bit Ray, why is Legend of Dragoon the greatest RPG of all time? And not Chrono
It's an
Trigger.
it's an innovator. It's I could honestly say that it honestly feels like the godfather of QuickTime events because every
Mm.
JRPG, you just stand there and you take your turn, right? And I don't care what you play, Chrono Trigger, you play Pokemon, turn-based, like
Mm-hmm.
that. But this game added a little something something, right? It had a timing aspect. So you would hit the button at the exact proper time and you would get
Mm-hmm.
added damage and things like that. So in a way that's like the originator of the QuickTime event, if you want to think about it like that. Storytelling wise, okay, now this is a story that spans over 4 discs on the PS1 released in the
Right.
year of our Lord 2000.
Right.
Think about a game coming out in the year 2000 on the PS1. The hardware issues alone are mind-boggling. Now, there are other games on the PS1 that are 4 disc and sometimes even more. Like Final Fantasy VIII was
Fantasy,
another long one.
Final
Final
Fantasy
Fantasy VII,
7.
yeah, these games that are just they're so big that the PS1 couldn't contain them. Now, if they would have came out on the PS2, I think they would have gotten lost in the shuffle. So I'm glad they came out when they did. But Legend of Dragoon comes out in 2000. The PS1 is about to launch next year or in 2001. And the fact that they released it then instead of waiting is a testament to them because they made it work. Yes, there's hardware issues. It's very little bugs, and the graphics are very dated. We're still using poised backgrounds and things like that, but they're very
Mm-hmm.
polished backgrounds. It's not like Resident Evil where it's a still frame and they work the
Yeah.
game around that. But it's very detailed, especially for a PS1, and and that's a testament to that. And the storytelling alone, the story of Dart and his crew. Now, a lot of people will bring up that it's very Final Fantasy VII ish, right? Uh, I digress. Legend of Dragoon was in production around the same time as Final Fantasy VII. It just took
Mm-hmm.
longer to come out because they didn't have the support of and money of Square Enix.
Right.
So this game took a little bit longer to they didn't have such a big team like Final Fantasy had. Um, I think that team was actually cut in half, if I remember correctly, on the documentaries and things that I've watched on it and interviews with the people that worked on the game and things like that. So you're half staffed, you're behind a generation, but you still kick out one of the most beautiful RPGs that I've ever seen. The storytelling, okay, look, it's translated from Japanese, all right? So the translations aren't going to be perfect every time, but the theme and the overall story, the twists and turns of that story are incredible. It's great. You know, you really get attached to these characters. And while I do love Chrono Trigger, and I do see your point as it is one of the greatest games, not just RPGs, but games, period. Uh, the storytelling, I don't think, can touch Legend of Dragoon because you really do get attached to these characters, and when they go away or they die, you're just like, man, like the bromance that goes on between Dart and Aaron. I'm just like, and then he goes away, and you're like, oh, well, shit. This is still disc one, and you're feeling this. You got three more discs, man, of
Yeah.
storytelling. You have a lot of adventuring to do, and then the magic system, which is really interesting to me, is the Dragoon magic system.
Mm-hmm.
Like when it's almost like going Super Saiyan when you activate the Dragoon powers, and there's things that you can do. If you're in Dragoon, you can't use magic items. You're done. You're
Yeah.
healing. Everything is cut. So you have to really strategize. You're gonna have to have a set healer that has to have a Dragoon stone and things like that. It's really intricate, and the battle system is great. It's fluid. I really can't say too much more about it. It's just overall, you know how you have them games where they just make you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Legend of Dragoon is one of those games that just make me feel like the world's not a shithole. You know what I mean? So yes, Legend of Dragoon to me is the greatest RPG of our day or any day, and I'm getting to play it again for the first time in probably about maybe close to 20 years, because finding a copy is hard to do these days, and if you do find one for a complete copy, you're paying over $100. And if you want it with a manual, that's over 250. Like, it's crazy because at the end of the PlayStation life cycle, they did not release very many copies of PS1 games because they're like, we're wrapping this shit up.
Yeah.
We're moving on to PS2. So finding a complete copy of Legend of Dragoon is, it's not the most difficult task in the world, but it's pricey. So that was long-winded. How long did I run for? About 5, 6 minutes on that one? Whew. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. But
Well,
I'm not gonna say that Chrono Trigger is not an amazing game. I really do. It's up there in the top tier of any, not just RPGs, but games in general. I love that game. But it's just Legend of Dragoon just has a special place in my heart.
I completely understand because I feel the exact same way, really, about a couple of different games. Final Fantasy IV was.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, I played
yes.
the original Final Fantasy for the Nintendo, and then of course when Final Fantasy IV came out as Final Fantasy II on the Super Nintendo, that's when
Mhm.
I was 11 years old at that point. So yeah, I played the original Final Fantasy, but I never seriously played through it. I was too young. So Final Fantasy IV really being my entry into the RPG realm, and there was good RPGs between Final Fantasy IV and Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger was pretty late in the life cycle of the Super Nintendo. It came out in 1995. So we are talking about games that came out. Let's see, the North America, 2000 for Legend of Dragoon. So we do have 5 years between these two. Of course, Chrono Trigger, and this is really going to be my first point in favor of Chrono Trigger, is yes, it's 16-bit versus Legend of Dragoon's 32-bit. And Legend of Dragoon does have full motion video, which was good looking. It looked great. But the 2D graphics holds up better, at least when the characters and the environment. Not saying Dragoon's bad, but I'm just saying, to me, if you play one over the other today, I just think graphically Chrono Trigger holds up there. But as far as the storytelling, the full motion video, you know, Legend Dragoon does have an advantage there, but everywhere else graphically, I Chrono Trigger just it aged a lot better for me. The PS1 3D era was rough. Again, a lot of great games I played in that era, but it was a rough with the 3D polygons and whatnot. So, and you mentioned Super Saiyan's 8-bit Ray. Of course,
Yep.
Chrono Trigger, the art direction or the art, the concepts and all that is done by Akira Toriyama, who, of
Toriyama. Yep.
course, is the Dragon Ball Z,
Dragon
he,
Quest. He also,
he's
he
the
also
guy.
you can tell that Dragon Quest is an Akira Toriyama,
Yes.
creation. Well, not a creation,
Yes.
but he did all the art for the characters, the modeling, and all that. So yeah, they're very Dragon Ball esque.
So yeah, to me, the art, the graphics, although it is a 16-bit game versus a 32-bit game, although it does not have the beautiful full motion graphics that Legend Dragoon has, to me, in the area of graphics art, I'm still edging out here with Chrono Trigger.
Bits will always look better than graphics, my friend.
Yeah,
Always.
I agree. I agree. Battle system. Okay. This is where me and Ray are not going to differ too much here because although I've seen a lot of people bitch about this online now that try to get back into Legend Dragoon, they say it's such a slog because of where you're talking about those quick time, particularly Lavits and Alberts, man. Theirs were fucking
Yep.
crazy hard. Um,
You
but
just have to get your timing down.
yeah,
That
it's
you just have to learn each character's timing, and then you're good to go. I don't know why it's so hard for people to pick up on that. It's been a thing for 20 years. I just don't get it. People are complaining for no reason. They're complaining just to shit on something about the game. Besides the fact that it was released buggy, they
yeah.
did patch it since then. And I bought it, and then I heard that it was buggy and it would black your game out because they did something to the coding. Because this isn't just a re-release. This is a remaster.
Yeah.
So they bumped everything up. They bumped the sound up. They bumped the graphics a little bit. Smoothed everything out essentially. But doing that, they fucked up the code somehow. So if you used your Dragoon magic, and it was randomized, it wasn't like a certain point of the game, but it would just black your game out. The screen would dissolve, and then it would just be a black screen. Now, fortunately, when they released it, there is a rewind feature, just like they did with Resident Evil and a couple of the other re-releases that they put out. But it didn't. You couldn't go back far enough, and then you had to start your game over, and people were bitching. Took them about a week to get a patch in, but now it runs smooth. I'm not hearing any other complaints. So I'm not going to invest possibly up to 40 plus hours of my life into a game if it's just going to black out. So I can
Yeah.
see why people were a little pissed off.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now let's
That's an
talk
investment,
about
man. And
yeah.
at our age, man, we don't really have time like that between movies, TV shows, our other interests. There's just not a lot of time to put into these super long RPGs. So if it's going to be buggy, I'm going to be a little iffy if I'm going to invest that kind of time into it.
Oh yeah. Oh please. I playing Octopath Traveler. I couldn't get through that. I was like, oh, it's just so yeah. I'm pretty picky. Wish I could be excited about the new Final Fantasy, but nonetheless, moving along
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
All right, so let's talk about sound. Boy, both of these, honestly, I can remember the music. But to me, the Chrono Trigger soundtrack is just more iconic. I'm not saying Legend of Dragoon's music is bad because I remember it being very good. In fact, I'm hearing it in my head right now. Just
Mhm.
in like the options menu. I don't know. But definitely as you're moving along in the world map, it's not really a world map though, which is kind of a point against it. I'll talk about that in a minute. But But Chrono Trigger to me
Uh,
had more iconic
the battle
music.
music.
Yeah.
The
Oh
battle
yeah.
music in Legend of Dragoon always just sticks in my head. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. I mean, it was rocking. I mean, it definitely had energy in that regard in the RPG. Um,
That soundtrack was so good, Don, that they did release it as a CD. You could buy it, the whole album. So I haven't found one because it was a limited thing, but if I find
yeah.
one, I will pick it up.
So
But you're right, Chrono Trigger does have a very epic, not epic, but like a
yeah,
very, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Fluid soundtrack. Like,
recognizable. Yeah, fluid, recognizable. I mean, it's just great. I mean, I just remember working at GameStop
mhm.
and just popping it in, just listening to it all day.
It is a
Uh,
very good soundtrack, and I think the guy that did the music for Final Fantasy IV actually did the one for Chrono Trigger as well, right?
mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why you're so nostalgic on the music for it so much because I think
Well,
it was the
not only
same
this,
guy.
get this, Ray, get this, right? So, yeah, I
Mhm.
played Final Fantasy IV on Super Nintendo. I played Chrono Trigger. I traded those games away. Those games became like rare. And we're talking like PS1 era, so there wasn't all this remake, Steam shit. And then what do? They release Final Fantasy Chronicles. What is Final Fantasy Chronicles? Final
I
Fantasy
know what
IV
it is.
Chrono Trigger. I was
Yep.
like, with added some added full motion video. I was like, yes, that was like my favorite back in the day.
I think I had a greatest hits copy of that.
Yeah, I've got a couple
Mhm.
copies. That anthology, for sure. All right, so let's get into the nitty gritty because I think me and Ray have kind of stated our case as to why. I mean, well, let me talk about the story of Chrono Trigger because you touched upon the story of Legend of Dragoon. So basically, what had happened was this big giant meteor monster thing falls from the sky in like the dinosaur era, and it stays there until it sucks enough energy of the earth until it's able to come to the surface and destroy the earth. Um,
Don, why does
so
that sound like the plot to the Super Mario Brothers movie?
because it's actually quite similar. uh, so yeah, so in this time adventure, and that's the thing, and so to me, just living this in my head, reliving this in my head, like this was really the first RPG that I can think of that ever dealt with time travel. So you're this kid named Chrono, and you get involved with this princess of your kingdom, and it turns out her pendant is able to activate some time portal, so she goes back in time. Your friend, who's a smart inventor chick named Luca, says, "Hey, I can probably get you to back in her time so you can go rescue her." You're able to do that. Um, and again, basically, you come to find out through trying to fix these things through time travel, because at first you can time travel, but you can't like time travel to wherever you want. You do get to a certain point in the game where you've got like a time traveling machine, or you can reach the end of time and you've got time traveling portals, and you can travel around that way. But as the game first starts off, you kind of go where you have to, and so you go to the future where there's like barely no humans, everyone's starving, and you learn that this Lavos character is going to destroy the earth. So this game is all about like traveling through time, doing what you have to do to try and stop Lavos. And along with that story, this was also one of the first games that had like multiple endings. It had like 16 or so multiple endings, and that's because you could literally fight because they had a new game plus. Okay, you could go through the whole game and you could start again, and you could get all these different endings because there's like multiple times that you can beat Lavos. You can beat Lavos like your first 5 minutes in the game. You actually get the best ending of the whole game if you're able to do that. You only have Chrono and the first character Marl, and then you can warp right to Lavos, the end guy, and beat him and get the best ending. But just the Kingdom of Zeal, you get involved with the Kingdom of Zeal, which is this magic kingdom that got ruined because Lavos was able to manipulate the queen into digging into the earth to use this mammoth machine to suck up magic. Um, yeah, it's just, and then of course you and your friends at some point come together, beat Lavos. It's just epic. You're able to recruit. There's a major villain in the game, Magus, who uses a scythe. I'm a sucker for people that use the scythes. He's like the major villain for the first part of the game, but then he comes to your party at some point. The main character dies.
That's
You
pretty
can
good
beat
sense.
the game while the main character's dead. Of course, can go through adventures and revive him, and so
Yeah.
yeah, just awesome. So again, you can see my love for Chrono Trigger, why I think Chrono Trigger is the greatest RPG of all time, and you hear why Ray thinks Legend of Dragoon is the greatest RPG of all time. So make sure you let me know, either tweeting at Omega Level Nerds or in the comments of our YouTube show. But let's get down to the nitty gritty, Gray. Before we let everybody decide here, let me just spit a couple of stats here, just so we can get a fair comparison. Although this doesn't discount your experience. So, when Chrono Trigger first released, it sold 2.3 million copies worldwide.
Mostly in Japan.
A lot in Japan, like only
Hmm.
289,000 in North America. I can't
Yep.
believe I was one of 289,000 people. That's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't
Let
think about getting the sale. I didn't think about getting the sales numbers for Legend of Dragoon. So, if you have that information, I'd love to hear that.
well, it sold more than 1 million copies worldwide, with most of the sales coming from North America. So overall, less sales, but more sales in North America. So you can argue that here in North America, sales wise, it was actually outperformed Chrono Trigger. So that's a how you
But you
look
got to
at
think
it sort of thing.
that's a different market though.
It is.
Because the Super Nintendo was flooded with great JRPGs back in the
Mm-hmm.
day, so it was kind of hard to pick and choose. Um, but towards the end of the PlayStation life cycle, there wasn't very many RPGs, JRPGs especially, that came out. So the fact that it did so well is astonishing to me. I was a day one customer. I got it from Electronic Boutique. I had it on pre-order, and I got a cool poster that was like this, and it was on my wall until the day that it got ripped off somehow. I don't remember how, a dog or something. But
Yeah.
uh but I was one of those people, man, because I was like, I love JRPGs, and this game is just it just seems like it's for me. I love the dragon, aspect of it, the dragon powers, and
That is cool.
I thought Dart looked awesome. So I thought he was the coolest, character, maybe next to Cloud, that I'd seen on that system. So yeah,
You're not wrong.
and, and a lot of people will say that they rip off Final Fantasy a lot, but I'm telling you, like, oh, Dart kind of looks like Cloud in a way. He's just a recolor of Cloud, and I'm just like, yes, but no.
Yeah, that's a little far. That's a little far.
But you got to remember, like, that spiky haired look. It was a lot easier to do with hardware
Right.
features.
Exactly.
With the hardware for PlayStation, it was just easier to do than to do smoothed out hair and things like that. So they work with what they had, and there's characters in Legend of Dragoon that remind you of Sephiroth, a white-haired man that destroys a town that
Yeah.
Dart, used to live in. That sounds familiar. Sephiroth, anyone? Cue the theme, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's questionable. But like I said, they were being done at the same time. So who ripped
Mm-hmm.
off who here?
Right.
You know? We'll never know. No one will ever say, and I kind of like it that way.
I think the battle system's enough to differentiate it, so
Oh
I
yeah,
never
yeah.
I never had a
The, inno-
problem with
the
those similarities.
yeah, the innovations on the battle system were just, to this day, I think, still hold up. For turn-based at least.
Um I will say, and again, you may perceive this as a point for Chrono Trigger, but of course, we got Chrono Trigger released on the Super Nintendo, released on the PS1, as I described in Final Fantasy Chronicles. re-released on the DS, then there's an Android version, and now a Steam, whereas Legend Dragoon has only been released for the PlayStation and now the PlayStation Network. So Chrono
Yeah, it
Trigger's
was.
definitely got a lot more remakes.
If you had a PS3 back in the day when they first introduced PlayStation Network back in the day, it was on there. Or PS Now, I believe it was called back then.
Mm-hmm.
It was on there. It was on there. And then, like every other good game that was on there, it miraculously disappeared. Never to be seen again until about a week ago. So, the only way to play that game was to get a physical copy for the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
While you can openly play Chrono Trigger. I mean, you can
On
emulate
my
it,
iPhone.
sure. Yeah,
I have it on my
yeah. But I
iPhone.
mean, yeah, I mean, you could emulate it, sure, but I mean, like, it's not the same, as
Mm-mm.
plugging it into a PS1, or if you got a PS2, or hell, if you got a PS3, you can throw them PS1s, in there. I wish the PS5 did that, but this thing is garbage. Um,
Oh no.
uh, yeah, eh, it doesn't play anything but PS5 and PS4 games. I'm like, what about the
Yeah.
rest? I have PS1 and PS2 games back here I'd love to play, but I can't. No reverse compatibility. So, uh, big waste
That's
of
too bad
$500 of
because
my life.
that would sell it for me.
But so we have Legend of Dragoon. It's available now. It's cheap, guys. It's $10 digitally. If you want to wait for a sale or something, it'll drop in price.
You,
You want to take a risk on it, but $10 to take a risk on probably um you know the greatest RPG of all time. I'm gonna say it. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It is the best RPG of all time.
it's right now is a cool but difficult time for me because yeah, obviously I like old school JRPGs, and right now, just with the span of just a couple of months or whatever, obviously we're talking about them putting Legend of Dragoon on the PlayStation Network. There was also Suikoden 1 and 2 remasters that were done recently, and also Chrono Cross. And I'm like, I want to play one of them here. I'm just having a hard time. Which one?
It's an
But
investment. It's a time investment, man. What do you got
yeah,
time for? You know?
not a lot of that. Couple.
JRPGs are never short. I've never played a short one under like 20 hours. Like
Mythic Quest, Final
maybe
Fantasy Mythic Quest was pretty short. It was like
okay, yeah,
15
well,
hours.
yeah, it was pretty short. Yeah, I will give it
But
that.
that was also supposed to be like an entry level RPG. All right, well all right, let's talk reviews here, okay? And we'll just lot less review sites for Dragoon, so we'll just compare apples to apples here. So Metacritic gives Legend of Dragoon 74 out of 100. I think it's a little bit extra to have a scale to 100, but okay. Metacritic gave Chrono Trigger 92 out of 100. So Famitsu 31 out of 40 for Legend of Dragoon. 34 out of 40 for Chrono Trigger. But here we go. GamePro,
Oh shit.
5
Going
out of
back in the
5.
day.
5 out of 5 for Legend of Dragoon.
They got some good people working there.
I guess at the time of Chrono Trigger, it was a 20 scale because Chrono Trigger gets 20 out of 20 for GamePro. So I guess 5 years earlier, they had a different scale. GameSpot, 6.4 out of 10 for Legend of Dragoon. 8.5 out of 10 for Chrono
How
Trigger.
is that website still running? How is GameSpot still a thing with that kind of review?
IGN, 7 out of 10 for Legend of Dragoon. 9.5 for Chrono Trigger.
They're paid off.
And then lastly, Next Generation did not. Okay, nope. They gave Legend of Dragoon 4 out of 10, but. Oh, no.
4 out of
And
10.
Or no. Sorry. 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 stars
Oh,
for Legend of
I was gonna.
Dragoon. 4 out of 5 stars for Chrono Trigger.
I was
So.
about to say, was it some Kotaku hating motherfuckers? Is that what that was? 'Cause they
Yeah.
hate everything.
Unfortunately, I do not see here that Legend of Dragoon won any game awards, while Chrono Trigger won from Electronic Gaming Monthly, which, take it a grain of salt. Magazine's a lot more prevalent in 1995 than 2000. But anyway, from Electronic Gaming Monthly, got Best Super Nintendo Game, Best Role Playing Game, Best Music in a Cartridge Based Game. GamePro gave it the Best RPG Game Award, and Nintendo Power Awards gave it Best Super Nintendo Game, Best Epic Game, Best Story, Best Ending, Coolest Transportation for Epoch the Time Traveling Machine, and Worst
Um,
Baddie as the
I, I,
Juggler.
would- I, I don't know. I kind of think Earthbound had the best travel system, but that's just me.
You know what? I have not played. I never. Earthbound has never been my cup of tea. What is your method of travel there?
It's weird. It's like a really fast, like rocket. Like you just go really, really
Okay.
fast. You take your whole squad with you, super duper fast. You never played Earthbound,
Nah,
or is
man.
it was in Japan Mother 2?
Yeah. No, that
Dude,
whole style.
the end battle is in a womb. There's a
Oh
baby in the
yeah, no,
background.
I know how crazy that shit is. No, I've seen the
Oh
videos.
yeah. Oh yeah,
But
Earthbound's crazy. How they made it, how Ness made it into Super Smash Bros. I have no idea, but hey,
yeah, but I was just never interested in that whole style. I don't know if
I
it
believe
wasn't
I
like.
believe you can I believe you can play Earthbound on the Switch Online. I
Oh,
believe it's on there on the
that and
Super
my
Nintendo.
Super Nintendo Mini I have.
Hmm.
I know I should sit down and play it one day and either record or stream doing it.
There's a
But
lot. There's a lot of RPGs out there that we could recommend to people, but I think honestly, I would recommend Legend of Dragoon and Chrono Trigger. I think would be yours. I think that's fair to say, right?
yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I believe Chrono Trigger is the greatest RPG. But listen, I'm not here to say don't go play Legend Dragoon. I love that game.
Yeah, we're not here downplaying each other's favorite games. We both
Yeah,
love each other's games. It's not even like that. It's just a little competitive rivalry that's
yeah,
leaked over from Twitter, and we get on here and we debate, but it's all love. It's the love of the RPG scene. You know.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the fact that you can now go play Legend Dragoon after it's had a very big hiatus is actually very awesome.
People have
So
been demanding it forever. Like we've been wanting it for so long
why
because
did they
it's
not
one of those.
continue the series? I mean, it's not like they let the ending was such that there couldn't be some sort of continuation.
No, it
Um,
was a closure. Yeah, the ending of the game is just it's a closure. Like I'm not going to spoil the ending for anybody that
yeah,
wants to play the game, but just know that like you can't really talk about the story of Legend of Dragoon without talking about all the I call them Game of Thrones twists and turns. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
people betraying each other and you find new companions along the way, and because of certain events you get these new companions, and you just can't talk about the story because it's dragged over a 4 disc story. Most people that play Legend of Dragoon will not make it past that first disc. Or if they have, they don't really remember the second, third, or fourth disc. And it's not because the story is bad or it drags. It's because they pack so much shit into that first disc. I would say maybe the first 2 discs. They pack so much story into that, and they really create this world. And then the third and fourth disc are you're kind of finishing off the story.
mm-hmm.
So there's just so much going on in Legend of Dragoon. And while Chrono Trigger does have a very very, I would say that Chrono Trigger, the story is a lot more easily to digest.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
if you're not really into that epic fantasy and you want a fun little like time travel game and monsters and it's all fun, then I would say like I would say that Legend of Dragoon is more for experienced RPGers. So, if you can get a copy of Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, anything Chrono really, I would say that's a good gateway to a JRPG instead of jumping into something like I don't know, something like a Final Fantasy 3.
mm-hmm.
Well, and fortunately for Final Fantasy, everyone's different, so you don't need to play the one before it. You don't have to understand
Yep,
the story because every story is different. Legend of Dragoon is one story. So there you go.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll, say check them both out. But I
Yep.
would like to know, again, in the comments at Omega Level Nerds on Twitter, what your choice is. Is it Legend Dragoon? Is it Chrono Trigger? Or is it something like super obscure like Shining Force 2, which my buddy Halo Drama is his favorite. He says it's the greatest RPG of all time. So let me
That
know
was
in
on
the
Sega.
comments.
That was on Sega, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Sega had some good RPGs on it that no one ever talks about. You're right. Shining Force was one of those really good ones. I rented it from the video store back in the day. I love that game. That's great.
Yep, good
Good.
shit.
Yeah.
All right, Wary. Well, before we sign off here, of course, at 8-Bit Ray on Twitter, at Gorilla Brain Pod on Twitter.
At 8-Bit Ray on Twitch. Monday. Actually, I should be live right now, but hey, it's fine. At 8-Bit Ray on Twitch. So,
All
you
right.
can follow me up. Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 p.m.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming by. I love always having these discussions with you because we do land on the opposite ends of things from time to time, but it's
Yeah.
always.
We didn't talk about the Bad Batch, but that's okay. That's okay.
Well, because, I was going to say something about it when you were talking about the marketing because it is kind of strange that they do have two shows out right now.
That no
Like,
one knows about. Yeah, it's weird.
but I figure maybe for another day when it
I
wraps
think the
up.
people I think the people that work for DC have now entered into this universe now.
Yeah, maybe. All of a sudden we'll have 3 Luke Skywalkers.
Yeah, don't worry about it. They'll show up. It's fine. We don't have
Yeah.
to explain anything or promote it.
But I guess we're probably maybe because we both, of course, contribute to Superhero Speak podcast. So they're gonna have a 500th episode coming up soon. So me and Ray are probably be on it. So check us out there as well.
It's gonna be a full house. I think it's gonna probably
It'll be
be the biggest show
crazy.
they've ever done. Yeah,
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 I'll just try to get a joke in, like 3 jokes in when I can,
yeah.
and have
My whole goal is just to make John like quit the episode. That's gonna be my main goal.
good luck. Good luck. All right. Well, you can, of course, tweet at the show, guys, at Omega Level Nerds. Like I said before, let us know what your choice for greatest RPG of all time is. And if you don't want to tweet, you can always Omega Level Nerds at Gmail. Email us. Would be ever so grateful. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you again, 8-Bit Ray, for joining me once again. I'm sure you'll
Anytime,
be
my man.
here soon. I'm sure we'll see you again soon.
Hey,
Thank everyone so much.
Mandalorian.
Go ahead.
Mandalorian's running, man. I'm gonna be here.
Yes. All right. Good. Good. That's what I want. Is we'll watch it. We'll talk about it, and we'll see. I'm excited to see the rest of it. So be back with us when we talk about more Mandalorian and any other stuff going down on the Mega Level Nerds.